Welcome to Athena's short takes on ethics topics that are important and relevant to today's ethics and compliance community. I'm your host, Susan Frank Divers. I'm an ethics and compliance advisor to Athena. Our topic today is one that many companies and individual ethics and compliance practitioners struggle with, and it's how do you actually start an ethics and compliance program? If you're a new company or a very small one, what do you really need that's important that will be impactful and make a difference? And so today, I'm delighted to have, I believe, one of the best experts in that area, Forrest Deegan. Welcome, Forrest, to the podcast.
Hey, Susan, it's great to be with you.
Thanks. Forrest is a well-known Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer who most recently headed Victoria's Secret and Abercrombie & Fitch's programs, both of which he started. And now he's a lecturer at the University of Chicago and the principal of Halo Effect Compliance. So, Forrest, we have a rapid fire question series to start where you can answer with one word or possibly two or three if you so choose. Are you ready to give it a try?
I am.
Let's start. Does every organization, no matter how small, have to have a detailed ethics and compliance program in place when it starts operating?
No.
All right. Are detailed policies and procedures setting out all of the legal and regulatory requirements that could affect the business the best place to start building a program?
I'll say no way.
I like that. And then lastly, what is the most effective approach to take when developing your new E&C program? Is it to emphasize enforcement or to emphasize guidance?
Guidance.
I like that too. So Forrest, let's jump into those topics. If you're a small company or a startup, what do you do to make sure that the regulators, if you encounter them, don't penalize you for not having a well-developed ethics and compliance program?
Yeah, well, great question. The sentencing guidelines, they do account for new companies, emerging companies, smaller companies, and acknowledge the fact that they're not going to have formal programs from the start off. They're not going to have an independent pillar of experts. And so they provide guidance for smaller companies, new companies, in how they can fulfill their ethics and compliance obligations, right? And really it's about being intentional about your activities and telling your story about how those activities ladder up to a program. And the sentencing guidelines include examples for different types of activities that can be included. Things like, stand-up meetings, including ethics and compliance activities within your existing activities, right? When you're doing walkarounds of a facility, ensuring that leadership's engaged, even if not through a formal software or system, that they're directly involved and that you're directly building this in. And so through that, right, you're able to develop your program kind of organically within your company.
I like the term developing it organically. That makes a great deal of sense, rather than just buying a big suite of policies and procedures from an outside provider. So let's turn to the second question, which is, where do you actually start? Do you start with policies and procedures, or where do you begin to climb this mountain?
The guidance from DOJ is clear, right? You start with risk. Start with risk assessment and risk management. And when you're looking at kind of a new business or certainly a new ethics and compliance program, right, where you need to start is with your existential issues, your operational issues, right? What are the risks? What are the occurrences that could prevent us from making or selling our product or service, right? And then drilled down into the risks and the controls that you've got in place for that, right? So once you identify, what are these existential issues? Are they operating permits? Are they, conflicts mineral issues that could prevent your product from getting into stores, right? Are they labor issues, right? Once you identify what your existential issues are, right, then you follow the money, right? You understand where are you spending that money? What are your most expensive suppliers? Which ones are most critical to the supply chain? Where are you spending that money? Where are you employing people, right? And so by focusing on both your existential risks and following the money, you're able to do an effective triage at the beginning of your ethics and compliance program and make, recommendations to leadership about where to invest the limited resources you have available.
That makes a great deal of sense. It reminds me that a couple of months ago, the head of export enforcement at Commerce warned that there were a lot of startups with what he called bleeding edge technology, who were being courted by the Chinese in particular. And that's a perfect example of where you should focus, because if that's your situation, then you have high risk and you have money as well flowing to those customers.
That's a perfect example, right, of something that is, you don't abandon common sense in this work. You start with it, right? And so where you have your highest risk, where you have your existential issues, that's where you focus.
Well, let's tackle the third one, and that's, how do you actually think of your ethics and compliance program? What kind of culture are you taking? Are you going to be a cop? Are you going to be a coach? What's your best advice on that?
So this goes back to that first question around how are you going to build something or let it evolve organically, right? The answer there is the answer here, because what you need to do is you need to build your program in a way that it is built within, integrated within the messaging, the cadence, the priorities of the company itself, right? Because an ethics and compliance program, it requires you to define a shared vision of success, right? You need leaders from your organization to understand that we're agents of this company together. We're here to protect and promote it. And I can help you do things in a way that is more efficient and that helps protect the company, right? But in order to keep that promise, it's incumbent upon your ethics and compliance professional to really know the business and to think about the how they're going to do something at the same time as they're thinking about the what they're going to do. Because if you're working with folks in operations, if you're working with leaders that are trying, to meet a deadline or a target, right? You need to come to them with solutions that have already solved for the how they're going to do it, along with the what.
That's another piece of priceless advice, because I think a lot of times people in the ethics and compliance teams can start off with a somewhat adversarial approach, particularly if there's an investigation. And what you want really is a partnership and a mutual search for the best solution.
The goal is to ensure that everyone understands we're all fighting for the name above the door, right? And shared vision of success allows you to partner in a way that is efficient and effective. But again, you've got to do your part. You've got to know their deadlines. You've got to know their technical terminology, and you have to know what systems are available for them to either conduct the training or provide the reporting when you go with your ask.
Well, that's, I can't think of anything to add to that, Forrest. And your answers to the three questions, I think, really provide a very accurate and helpful guideline to people who are in that high pressure situation of starting an ethics and compliance program. So we're out of time because we're doing these short takes, but I hope you'll come back in a couple of months and visit with us again.
Excellent. Always great to see you, Susan. Thanks for having me.
The same, Forrest.